Okay, let's start. I wanted to tweak a little bit my green screen because I look a little bit transparent today, but it's okay. I will fix it later. There is something that I would like to adjust, but it's okay. So let me know if you are ready, because today we have to see a lot of things. Good morning. Good morning. Today we have a lot of tiny. I mean, there are several topics we have to cover. They are very simple. My voice seems to have echo. Really? Let me check. Let me check. It is possible. So give me a second. Okay. Okay, tell me now if there is echo, or if like my voice and my sounds are fine. I mean, it should be fine now. Let me know. I know that is perfect. Great. So let's start, and let's write immediately everything that we have to study today. There are several things, and not that complex, but there are many. Last week we have covered artificial lights, and what we have to do today is we have to complete what we have started last week with lights, and I need to show you how to make sunlight first. In combination with that, I have to show you what is exposure control. Then we have to see cameras, render settings, and last but not least, we will see how simple and how easy is to import 3D objects from downloaded model. Downloaded 3D objects. Okay, so just to remember, today we have to see how to use something called Sun Positioner to create sunlight. Then in combination with these, I have to show you exposure control. Then we need to see how to use cameras. And we need to see three, I would say, simple settings. Good morning, Leo. In the meantime, we have to see three simple settings. There are settings for a render when we want to make our final presentation. So when we are ready, when we have done everything and we just need to make our final rendering for our presentation. And last but not least, today we need to see how to import and how to, not how to import, because technically import an object is too easy, it's just go to file, import, but how to import and manage let's call them 3D blocks. So files that you can find online, you can download them and you can use them inside your projects. Okay, so let's see all these things, and starting from Sun Positioner. In order to make this happening, I will set my viewport exactly as I did last week for artificial lights. Plus, I will make a very basic scene again with a few boxes, just to have something to check with my light. Okay, so something very simple. Then let's put this one, and let's place our usual reference thing in here. Perfect. And then I will set my objects all in white, so I will make a white material that I will use for all my objects, and I will also set my viewport in order to show me in real time light changes. So I will go to standard, I go to lighting and shadows, and I set illuminate with scene lights, and then I go again to the same menu, I go again to lighting and shadows, and I also enable shadows, and this is fine. I then open my material editor so that I can create a simple physical material that I will make by double clicking. I will make it totally white. So I click here, make it white, also roughness 1, because I don't need this material to be reflective. I select all my objects and I apply this material to my entire selection. Boom! And this is done. Okay. And I think I can close my material editor. So now I need to place my light source, and the one that I want to use is sun. To create sunlight, I have to go to the Create tab, I have to go to Lights menu, and I have to use this specific light source, the one that is called the Sun Positioner. And when I click Sun Positioner, what I have to do is I have to, first of all, place, in terms of position, my sunlight somewhere in the file. It doesn't matter exactly where it is. I personally like to place it far from the house itself that I am designing, so that if I want to move it, if I want to quickly select it, it becomes very easy to find it. So I just place it somewhere, and I have to left click and drag. And when I make this first step, I see this kind of compass appearing. And again, it doesn't even matter how big this symbol is, it's just for your visibility. But when I release my left button, I need simply to start rotating the compass in order to specify in 3ds Max where north of my project is. So let's say I will set it, I don't know, like this direction, and I keep creating my light. So I make another left click. I need to finish the creation of my sun positioner by moving my mouse up and down again, just to select how big light symbol has to be. And again, believe me or not, it doesn't matter if it is as small or as big, it is just a parametric symbol. And finally, I have my sunlight. My sunlight, if I click move, or I can discover that now, if I move something, I will be able to move this entire symbol here, that is my sun positioner. And if I try to select light itself, if I left click and I try to move it, I will see that this light won't move. So right now, by using move or rotate, I'm not able to change the position of light itself. So I can change the angle of light, I can change the color of light as well. Okay, what I have to do instead is this. I will simply have to discover that by going to the Modify tab with my sun positioner selected, if I scroll down a little bit so I don't change any of these first group of parameters, the only interesting area of sun positioner is this one, the one that is called date and time. And this is why, simply because exactly like sunlight works in real life, we are able to change direction, intensity, and color of light by changing the time where we want to simulate this light. So if I start, let's say, changing the hour of the day, I will see that my light will completely change its angle. And not only, now we will see that nighttime light will change also its intensity. And if I go like to morning, I will see that light is not only changing direction, but it's also changing the color. So exactly like it happens in real life. And yes, it is incredible, but it's too cool, isn't it? And what is happening right now is basically that 3ds Max simulates physical behavior of sunlight according to many realistic parameters. So I can just move the hour, I can fine tune the angle by changing minutes instead of the day. technically I can also change the day of the year, so I can simulate the behavior of light according to the season. And you know better than me that in the planet, not at the same time, at the same day, at the same season, we have not exactly same light conditions. So another thing that we can do is, if we want to have an extremely realistic simulation of light, we can also change the location on Earth. So we can click location, and if we know the where more or less our project is going to be built, we can click maps, we can change the continent, and when we click location, we can also uncheck this parameter called the nearest big city, so that we are basically nearest big cities like snapping points. But if we uncheck that, we can really place our location marker wherever we want in order to simulate light in a very specific place. And if we want to be even more precise, if we use Google Maps, let's say, to find a specific location, let's say here, and in Google Maps we read the parameters called the latitude and longitude, we can also, instead of just clicking the map, we can paste those numbers in these two fields. Let's say Florence is more or less here. Exactly. So if we know Florence, we can technically even copy paste latitude and longitude in these two fields, and we will have the exact simulation of light in that specific place on Earth at this hour, at this day of the year. Let's say today is May 13th, so month 4, day 13, hour 9:27. Let's say this is how light should behave in Florence at this hour, this day, and so on and so on. So don't mind if here is written San Francisco, because these are parameters that we need to deal with. Okay? And again, if I just quickly show you, by changing the minutes, hours, and stuff like this, we can simulate realistic light. So, what is the problem here? The problem when we especially use sun positioner is this. Look, because we have not a parameter that is a number that allows us to change how bright this light is going to be, so there is not intensity of light, because intensity is correctly calculated according to the hour and so on and so on. We need to understand what we really do. For example, when we go outside and imagine this, you are inside your house and it is a little bit dark. Then you suddenly open the window, and what your eyes do is, eyes will balance the amount of light that is entering through the window by closing the iris. No? So what they do is they adjust what is called the exposure. And this is exactly the same thing that we need to do in 3ds Max. Because, let's say, when light is at 6 a.m., my rendering, will be fine, will be readable, but when I go to 7 a.m., you will see that my render will be completely white. And even if I click render, look, if I render this image, there will be so much light that the entire rendering will be white. Technically, it is not just white, but in reality, this rendering is overexposed. So, second thing that we have to study today will be this. Look, you have, before making your renderings, you have to go to the menu that is rendering. You have to open the option that is called exposure control. And once that you are here, this is exposure control is here. What you have to do first is you need to click render preview. By clicking render preview, you will have a super fast, just tiny preview of our render is going to look like when you will hit render button. And now look, if I just discover a little bit my if I open a little bit my menu here, the exposure is something that you have to easily adjust by changing this number here. The number inside the option called global exposure, that is called exposure value, or EV, that means exposure value. This number has a very simple meaning, and the way it works is this. If you increase this value, your rendering is going to be darker. So let's say like this. It's going to be dark. Let's make it black. If you instead decrease this number, so if you increase it, it becomes darker. If you decrease it, your rendering will become brighter. Okay? This is the way that this number works, and it is very simple because by clicking render preview here, if I adjust the exposure value, I will see immediately how my rendering is going to look in this small preview. So I have closed previous one. So look, my rendering is too bright, it is overexposed. Perfect. Let's increase this value. So look, I increase the value, and close to 14 I will start viewing a correctly exposed final result. So now if I click render, this is same view, so I haven't changed the angle, I haven't changed anything, I haven't changed light intensity. The only thing that I have done is I have slightly changed the exposure of my virtual camera that I use inside 3ds Max. Okay? And I can see that when I use also sun positioner, the sun is not only a light, but the sun positioner also adds the environment to my project, because sunlight is the result of the combination of direct sunlight and diffuse ambient light, so the environment. For example, let's see, with this exposure, if I go again to 6:50 a.m. and I render, look, the intensity of light is darker, the color is more yellowish, and even the environment is changing. Okay? I can go even earlier, and I render, even earlier, I can exaggerate, like at 6 a.m. And you will see that at 6, 8, light is very weak, super yellow, but even the environment changes, okay? And this is how basically sunlight is simulated inside 3ds Max. So it is the combination of using sun positioner and at the same time adjusting the exposure by using exposure control. Okay, till here? Because there is one more thing that I want to show you about the two these two features used together. But till here, is it fine? Is it clear? Perfect. So let's see another thing. That is, let's say I set the hour of the day at, I don't know, 9:36, like now, and I render. I can see that my rendering looks fine, but there is a problem here. That is, my rendering is looking fine on the outside, not on the inside. So if I was doing like an exterior project where I want to show my client elevations, or I mean, let's just make a slightly more interesting shape in here. So imagine that this is my project. So I have all of these nice looking volumes in here, I mean, and I hit rendering. At this hour of the day, with this speed, it is even a little bit too bright, I will say, but the exterior of my project is looking 100% fine. And if I instead look at my project from an interior point of view, so if I want to show the inside, so we can delete all these unusable thing. So if I am inside and I render, even if the outside is fine, I can see that my inner part of the project, it is completely black. It is terrible. And don't mind about the noise. That is something that we will fix later with render settings, but I can see that it is dark. And believe it or not, the problem is not a setting in 3ds Max. It's not wrong, a number, something. No, what's wrong is my project, because I have light in my project that is coming from this direction. And basically, in my project, if I want light, I need a window to be opened to let the light going inside. So, see this extremely big difference. By keeping the same view, same everything, the only thing that I will do is, look, I make a box. Okay, let's change the view, then I will go back to the view in a second. Exactly. But let's say I have this box here. I select the wall. Where is my mouse? I select the wall. I use ProBoolean. And I pick this big box here. So technically, the only thing that I have done is I have opened a window. at least inside this room. So by doing Shift Z, not Control Z, by doing Shift Z, I go back to my by hitting Shift Z several times, I go back to my previous view. So let's see. This was the rendering without the window, but if I open the window and I render now, it should be completely different. And you can see that it is completely different. So there is light going inside, there is shadow, the entire interior has become brighter, okay? So at the end of the day, using sunlight in 3ds Max, it is just something that you have to imagine basically like sunlight works in reality. You have a room with small windows, that room will be dark. You have room with super big windows, that room will be bright. And that's it. A lot of students, for example, used to ask me if when I go to rendering and when I go to exposure control, they used to ask me if there is a correct value that we have to use for exposure. And I keep trying to explain all of them that there is not a correct value of exposure, because the exposure depends on several factors there are. It depends on how much light there is in my project, how bright is the light, from where light is coming, how many windows I have in my project, how big they are, and also it depends on my personal taste. So what it means is that I can, if I want, make on purpose slightly darker or slightly brighter renders, just because maybe they are more similar to my vision of that space. What it means, for example, if I click render preview here and I see that this house is super bright, the rendering is super white, it looks, you know, like fantastic. But honestly, if I want to simulate this project is in Florence is very hard to find this kind of extremely bright light. So in order to make a realistic effect, I will increase the exposure so that my rendering will look a little bit darker. It will look maybe like this. That is more realistic. Also, don't mind the fact that now my house is just white, but when you have all materials and colors and furniture, it will be even more realistic. Or if I want instead to make a rendering, look, if I select sun and I want to make the hour of the day like sunset or sunrise, we'll see, at 6, like that, no, 6:10, okay, and I hit render, I can see that with this exposure at this hour of the day, with these windows and so on, my rendering will be too dark and I can't read anything beside the sky outside that is going to have light. So each time that I change my lights, that I want to change the mood and so on, I have to go to exposure control and I have to adjust it according to the light, the hour, window, and how I want final effect to be. So for example, I want to make my inner part very readable, so I will decrease a lot exposure value so that when I render inside my house, inside will be readable, even if the outside will look slightly overexposed, but it is totally fine. Okay? Is that clear? What the exposure is and exposure control is and how to use it? Let me see. Let's see. Let's wait for your feedback. Perfect. Perfect. Okay, so let's see another thing that is this. Let's change light again to an hour. That is fine. Okay, so let's see, my project is a little bit more complex than a couple of boxes like this. And to make it more complex, what I will do is simply I will select all these things and I will use mirror instance. Okay, and I make these two rooms and I attach them together. Okay, and just to show you, if I make with default lights, this is how my project is looking like. Nothing spectacular, but it has something very important, that is, now my building is correctly made by closing all sides, by having the ceiling, by having the floor, by having all walls, and so on and so on. I can even have walls inside, let's say like this, and sorry, just want to make it white for no specific reason, just because, I mean, having it blue really bothers me. Okay. So now, where is my problem? My problem is that when I complete my architecture, now using only my mouse to zoom in and zoom out is very complex, so that by using, let's say, my middle wheel, if I simply zoom in, I can zoom in not enough, or suddenly I will zoom in too much. And then if I use Alt and middle click, boom, I can find myself by mistake underground, or then I have to go inside and I am, let's say, underneath the table, then I zoom out, boom, and I am outside. So it is a nightmare to use only your mouse to navigate inside your project in order to find right angle that you want to use for your renderings. So what to do? It's very simple. That is this. Look, if you go to create, you can see that next to lights there is a menu that is called cameras. Sorry, whenever I render, no matter the exposure, my object is just black. So make a checklist. So things to check. Thing number 1. Is there light? Or you have deleted any light source? Thing number 1. Thing number 2. Which material are you using? So open material editor And to open the material editor, you have to open it. Exactly. So, thing you have to check is, in your material editor, the preview of your material is visible or not, or it appears like an empty gray preview. Because if it is visible, material is fine. If this preview is just an empty gray field, this means that it's not the objects are black. Objects are not renderable, so you have to use another material. And this is thing number 2 to check. Thing number 3 is go to rendering, go to render setup, and be sure that you are in production rendering mode and you are using ART renderer. Okay, so let me write thing number 3, ART renderer. Thing number 4 is check exposure control by being sure that is the one that is called physical exposure control, because sometimes by mistake when we go to exposure control and let me delete this, we can see that we are correctly using what is called physical camera exposure control. By mistake, sometimes if we rotate the wheel and we were clicking here, by mistake we can change this to something else that in the preview looks like it is working, while when we render it won't properly work. So this must be physical camera exposure control. And also be sure that you change not this upper value, while you have to use this secondary value, this one, to change the exposure. Okay, let me know if you have made these 4 tries and let me know if your rendering works now. Let me see the chat. We are all waiting. I mean, we want to see if one of these steps will solve problems. We are creating suspense, like, oh. So, tell us something. I mean, we are all waiting for you to see if you are able to render now. No news. So, for now, let's continue with what I was saying, and then we will see if Leo will be able to solve issues with these suggestions. So, what I was saying is this. When we have our project completed, now it is hard to navigate inside it. So what we have to do is this. We have to go to create. We have to go to the menu that is called cameras. And in here you have to use 2 of these cameras. One is the one that is called target camera, or you have to use free camera. Forget about physical camera, simply because physical camera is like a target camera, but it has the exposure control on the camera rather than the global exposure control. So it is a little bit more complex to be managed, especially at the beginning of using 3ds Max. And also, if you see, I have another camera here only because I have a plugin installed to my 3ds Max that is called Corona Render, and I have this additional camera. If not, you won't see it. So what you have to do is basically this. You can choose between physical and target camera. They work the same exact way in terms of what they do, what they are. The only small difference is how you move them, so you can be free to use one or the other or both inside your projects. So let me show you how they work. That is very simple. That is this. If you use a free camera, you select it and you just make a simple left click and you create your first camera. A free camera is simply a camera that can be moved by using move to change the position of the camera, and you can use rotate to change where camera is looking at. Okay? The only difference between these and target camera is that target camera instead is a camera that you create by using left click and drag. First point that you click is where the camera is, and when you left click and drag, you will drag a target point that remains where you release your left button. So what is the difference? The difference is simply that in order to change position of the camera, you can use only move to move the camera, but the camera will always point at its target. So if you want now, you can or move the camera or select the target, and you can move the target to change where the camera is looking at. Okay? Believe it or not, this is just the difference. Then they work the same way, they have same exact parameters, so it is only how you prefer to move them. But once that you have cameras, see how beautiful and as well precise it will be to manage your points of view. Because see what you can do now. If I press key combination that is Alt W, what I do is I minimize my perspective viewport, and what I have is I have here the top view, here front view, and here left view. So what I need to do when I create cameras is I want to see what my camera is viewing right now. And to make this happening, the only simple thing that I have to do is this. Look, I click with I left click where I can see perspective, and I can see that by left clicking on perspective, I have a menu that is called cameras. And if you see, simply because I have created two cameras, right now I can choose between the camera that is called camera 1, that is my first free camera, and I can choose or between camera 1 or camera 2. So if I left click here, I go to cameras and I select one of these. I switch my viewport to viewing exactly what my camera is viewing right now. And from now, whatever adjustment I apply to my camera, I will see immediately the difference in what the camera is viewing. So look, for example, I can move my camera away from my building and I will see that this is exactly how my camera view is changing. So the viewer is going further away from my project. I can do the opposite instead. I can move my camera and I can place it inside my house and I can use rotate to change where this camera is looking at. Okay? I can move it in floor plan, I can move it in the front or left viewport in order to change the height of my camera. Okay? And last but not least, when I select a camera, I will discover that I can't just go to the camera viewport, and if I use my wheel, I don't know if you can see, but I'm trying to zoom in and out, I can see that it doesn't work anymore, because now even the field of view of my camera is managed by the camera itself and not more by simply navigate with my mouse. So the field of view, that means how wide the perspective is simply a parameter of my camera, and it is same exact parameter if I'm using target or free camera. So if I go to the modify tab and I have my camera selected, by changing this weird parameter that is called FOV, FOV means field of view, by changing this is basically an angle, and it is this angle here. If I increase it, I will have a wider perspective. If I decrease it, I will have a narrower perspective. So if I increase, if I increase it, I will have a wider perspective. I shouldn't go too much. In general, 100 is even it is, I mean, the widest you should use. Okay, and basically you are zooming out and you are able to see better what is inside your house. Okay, so let me read. Someone says, for the final presentation, we need to add 6 render. Do we choose the views or you want something specific? Absolutely, you choose where to place your 6 cameras. There is only one rule to follow, that is good sense. What it means: if I make a project where I have some specific elements that are the core of my project, I need to be sure that those elements are visible in my renderings. But if you make a project where the living room is the center, no, the core of your architecture, and then you make 6 renders that are the kitchen, the bathroom, the studio, the toilet, the guest bathroom and guest bathroom and you don't take rendering of the living room, you have completely missed the point of doing renders. So you have to choose where you want to put cameras, and they must be always placed where there are interesting things to see, not just to make 6 renders. They must be interesting, because when you make renders, basically you take pictures, so you don't have just to take 6 pictures, but they must be 6 interesting pictures. Okay, is that clear? I mean, it has to be clear. And perfect. And let me show you this. So this is my free camera. Cameras also, once that you create a camera that you like any other object in 3ds Max, camera can be copied. So you can use, let's say, shift and move, and you can place another camera. Again, it can be an instance, can be a copy, but now this will be camera 3. So if I go to the name of the viewport and I click cameras, now I will see that my menu is increased and it shows me as many cameras that I have in my project. So I can set my view to camera number 3. And this is exactly what this camera is viewing right now. So I can change the rotation. I can place it here, let's say. Okay, so when to use instead target cameras? Target cameras must be used when, instead of having when you need to create just a view of a space, when you want to be sure that your camera is pointing to a certain object, that is when you should use target camera. Let me show you an example. So let's say in my project I add a teapot on top of this table here. Okay, and I want to check from which angle it will be better to take a picture, so to make a rendering of the teapot inside my project. So what I will do is, in this case, I will use a target camera. And this is why, because a target camera points always where the target point is. So I will select the target of my camera and I will place it. You don't need snaps or stuff like this, but I will place the target of my camera where my key object is placed. So I've adjusted on the top and I also adjust it from one of my elevation. So this is where the teapot is, and it is also where I have placed the target. So I change my viewport. It is camera 2. So I switch my viewport to camera 2. Right now I can't see anything for a very simple reason. That is, my camera is outside the house, so it has the wall in front of it. So I will just move it, and when it goes through the wall, you will see that now my camera is pointing at the teapot. And no matter where I change the position of my target camera will always keep its target into the center of my viewport. So I can also move it sideways, and look, you will notice that no matter where I place my target camera, my target camera will always point at its target. Okay? So if I want to make a nice view where my teapot is into my main object, and maybe behind I see a little bit of the window and so on and so on, I make something very interesting. Let's say I will put the camera in here, I will move it a little bit low, so that basically I place the camera at the same height of the table and I can see the window behind. But if I want to be sure that my teapot is the subject, then I can select my target camera, I can go to the modify tab, and I will decrease the field of view, because by making a narrower field of view, I simply zoom in to my subject. This is too much, and I will have this particular render. Okay? So now you have 3 cameras, and you can easily switch from one camera to another, and according to the camera that you select, when you will click render, you will render exactly that selected, that active camera. Okay? So at least, because you need to make 6 renders for my final project, you will need 6 different cameras. And something that is very simple is, if instead you are still modeling and you want to be sure that with your mouse you move your point of view and you can easily make the orbit zoom in, zoom out whenever you want, from camera to perspective, you can just hit the the keyboard key that is P, that is for perspective. So you hit P and you are in perspective. So I can use again my mouse, I can rotate the wheel, I can press Alt and middle wheel to make my perspective adjustments, but whenever I want, I click the name of my viewport, select a camera, boom, and I will go back to my camera view. Okay? Till here? Let me see. Let me read the chat. Let's see if everything is clear. Perfect. I'm too happy. Before showing how to import 3D object, there is last thing that I want to show you. That is this. There are final quality render settings, because look here. Even if I render, okay, exposure is fine. I really like it. I mean, this is a masterpiece of white, boring architecture. But I can see that the render is terrible. It is super noisy, super grainy. There is no sharpness into edges of my objects. There is, no, this is unacceptable. Also, the image itself is very small. So there are at least 3 things into my rendering that I have to adjust. I have to adjust the resolution, so I have to adjust dimensions in pixels of how big my image it will be, and this is first. I have to adjust another aspect, that is, I can clearly see that whenever there are edges in my project, those are not sharp at all, while they are very pixelated, so they look like steps, and that is horrible. And also, even more visible is the fact that in my project there is all these visible grain that in computer graphic is called noise. Okay, this is image noise. So I have to remove a noise, I have to increase sharpness, I have to make my image size bigger. So how to fix these three problems? It's very simple. These are render settings. So what you have to do is just this. You have to go to rendering. You have to go to render setup. And in here there are few parameters you have to change. These parameters are: parameter number 1. In this area that is called common, you have to change what is called output size. So this. You can see that right now this is set as 640 by 480. This is dimension in pixels, so it means that, for example, height is 480, so it means that from here to here there are 480 pixels to define my image. That is very small. You can read probably, if I have written these, that for my final presentation I would like to have renderings that are at least, oops, this is too thick. My renderings should be at least 8600 pixels for width and 8200 pixels for height. Okay, so this is first parameter you have to change when you are ready to make your final render. So you have to do this basically at the end of your project. So I click here, I write 1600, 1200, so that when I will hit render, my image will be a lot bigger than that small 640 by 480 pixels. And this is first problem solved, resolution. Second problem is the quality, so sharpness and the definition of all my visible edges. This is by going to the art renderer. And what you have to do, this is very straightforward. You have to move the render quality from draft to high. Believe it or not, don't go over high, because if you go to this area here, calculation that your computer should do will be so hard that 90% of the time, if you go, let's say, on extra high or maximum, simply your computer crashes, because it has not enough power, not enough resource to handle so that heavy calculations. So I highly recommend, especially because we all have laptops and not workstations, I highly recommend not to go over high. Last but not least, we need to remove that horrible visible noise. So we scroll down the art render menu. we see a parameter called noise filtering, and here we have to enable noise filtering, and we have to set this, like more or less for the same reason. We have to set it to 75%, not higher than this. Never. Okay? So, once that you render in this way, I would like to show you, but I'm not sure if I can live streaming and rendering high quality at the same time, but I just want to show you one thing, that is this. This is a rendering that took me, I don't know, 5 seconds, 6 seconds to be made, and it was very bad. So it has low resolution, low quality, no noise filter. So what is the only problem when you set your parameters like this? Believe it or not, what really happens is that time needed for you to make renderings will be a lot more. And also, while 3ds Max is rendering, you can't use your computer to do other tasks. And unfortunately here, there is, not that much to say, rather than the more time you wait, the more quality you will achieve at the end. And unfortunately, time is basically the price to pay to have quality. The more time, the more quality. It's very straightforward. And unfortunately, if you want to decrease time for your renderings, again, you have to pay something. What it means? If you want to have like a discount, let's say, look, you go to the seller and you say, I have 30 minutes that I can spend for my quality. And then 3ds Max will say, if you want to render in 30 minutes, that is very fast, because in general, good renderings are rendering like in 1 hour, 2 hours, leaving your computer renderings, so be aware of that. If you want to cut time to 30 minutes, again, there is a price to pay, and you can pay it with two different coins there are. One, you can cut the quality as well. So less time means less quality. If you can't wait because your deadline, let's say, will be tomorrow and you need to save time, I'm so sorry, less time means less quality. There's nothing to say. Or you have a second option, and again you have to pay something, that is, here. Less time means a more expensive CPU. So you have to buy a faster laptop with a lot faster processor, with a lot more memory, RAM, with a better graphic card, because the more powerful is your hardware, the faster will be your rendering. That is, again, this or that. There are no other ways to cheat rendering quality. So, or you wait a lot of time, or you get a faster laptop. That's it. Why I want to show you, why I need to show you these? Because I had this beautiful idea in my mind, that is, next week you have to deliver your final project. So what I would like to do next week will be in the 2 hours of our final class. What I would like to do will be I would like to review projects that you are uploading on the server, and then using those 2 hours in order to give you the possibility to ask me anything about your projects. And in this way, what I want to do will be basically I will make a quick revision of your projects live with you. So I will open your PDF, you will ask me things in chat, and after that class I will give you 1 extra week. So why did this change? Yes, but I will give you 1 extra week so that let's see the calendar for a second. So May the 20th is our final class. So May the 20th I will basically make our final, let's call it revision. So you ask me, Marco, please open my project. Can you go to page number 4? Let's say I don't like this particular result, how to fix it, and I will explain it. Can you open page 3? Do you like it? Yes, no, maybe. And I will give you final suggestions so that by having 1 more week, so till May the 27th, you will have time to upload your fixed, if it is needed, fixed final. May the 27th, I will close, so I will lock all yours Google Drive folders, so that after May the 27th at 11 Italy time, so no excuses, I will basically give you this as a final deadline that can be, I mean, if you go over these, don't bother me with emails like, Marco, I couldn't upload it because, I mean, no. It is a 1 week of extension. It is more than enough. So this is, I mean, in or out. I mean, there is no gray in the middle. It is black or white. So can we do low quality pics for revision? Yes. But they must be exactly those that you will include into your final. So yeah, there must be same cameras with all materials. A revision must be like a final. Do we just add the pictures onto our folder? No. It has to be exactly the final presentation. So like the one that is going to be for the final. So exactly like it will look for the final, with the PowerPoint, inspiration, if you want to include your old AutoCAD thing. So imagine there is more or less deadline with 1 week of extension. Is not that, yes, we will do it for May the 27th. The pressure must be more or less like, yes, May the 20th we have to deliver it. But then you will have a small extension. Okay, so the final project must look exactly like it will look at the end, but at least, like Maria said, yes, you can use pictures with lower quality. I I personally suggest at least try one rendering with final quality, because you will see how much time your 3ds Max will require, your laptop will require. So let's say if it says 2 hours and you have to make 6 renders, then it is math. Then remember that before May the 27th, you need at least 12 hours of computer time just for final renders. Okay? So don't do this at the very end of your time. Okay? Is that clear? Let me see. The meantime, let's delete all these things. So are these instructions clear? So that if everything is clear, I will explain last thing for today. That is how to manage and how to import 3D blocks so that you have enough knowledge to make unbelievable good looking final exams. So Maria asks, it's because for sure we will need our laptops for other subjects. Haha. So when we have this extra time, we can dedicate, we can take 2 hours to render. Life is hard. Life is really hard, and you can solve this problem in multiple ways. One, for example, would be you can buy a second laptop. Why not? And you can use one laptop for other subjects and one just for my renders. Why not? For example, I mean, not because you have, honestly, but for example, a lot of students that has a Mac, after a few times spent with me, they end up by buying a Windows laptop, and in this way they use the Mac for all other subjects and the Windows one just for 3ds Max. I mean, just a suggestion. Student budget in here. I mean, come on. Open your wallet. I'm kidding. I know. I mean, I know. Also good hardware is really expensive, and only one day, I mean, not for the exam, but one day, if you really need and you want to work with professionally with these kind of softwares, believe it or not, better idea would be to have a medium average cheap laptop, but to buy an expensive, extremely powerful desktop computer. So and that will really change your life. Anyway, but not now for sure. So for now, I will giving you an extension so that you basically have a bit more extra time just for rendering. Anyway, let's see last thing for today. That is how to include inside your projects 3D blocks. So files that you haven't created but that you simply download from websites. First of all, you can't use same websites that you have used for AutoCAD, simply because for 3ds Max you need the 3-dimensional files, while for AutoCAD they were just lines, they were just 2D drawings. And for example, but not because there is only this website, I will show you a website that is called archive3d.net. Without www, it is just called like this, archive3d.net. Also, I go here and I will also copy and paste wait, what? Let's see what Leo has written. Most people that win the lottery buy a car or a house. I will buy a wall. That's right. That's right. Houses can be rent. Cars, you can use car sharing so that you have not even to pay taxes or go to wash your car. But how satisfying would be to have a powerful machine for rendering. Those are satisfactions. That's true. I mean, that is. Also remember, if you win the lottery, call me. I mean, I will share my Amazon wish list. Okay, so let me finish with 3D blocks. So if you go to a website like this, there are multiple websites. Just take care because not them all are for free. Okay. So just be sure that if you Google, for example, you should Google free 3D models, free 3D blocks, because most websites are a little bit foggy, and they say yes, it is free. Then they start asking you like your name, your password, your email, and so on and so on. This is not. This is I mean, it looks like very old school, because the interface of this website is very classic, but it works. So let's see how it works. That is very simple. It works by having on the right all categories of 3D objects that you can download. And once that you select a certain category, let's say, I don't know, chairs, then what you have to do is you can browse all these models, but take care, they are not only these, because if you go a little bit below, you will see that these numbers here are all pages only inside this particular category. So we have technically 291 pages just for chairs, tables, sofa. Okay, so you can browse one of these pages. Let's see, let's go to number 11. I don't know. Perfect. And if you want, you can also use search up here to filter results. So if you are looking for something more specific, and you will search inside this website. Let's say I like this chair here. Okay, for example. So what I have to do is I have to download this chair. So I click download. Yes, download. And I will save these in my download folder. And I want to show you how to manage this downloaded file, because it would be super simple. Look, you open your download folder, and for example, this file, that is this weird zip file in here, This says that your file is compressed, is an archive. And what you need to know is that you can't immediately, because a lot of people used to do this, they just double click on the zip file and they try to import files from here, but you can't, because what you have to do is you have to extract files from the archive. So first step is you have to right click on the archive and use extract all. If you want, you can give a more precise name to your folder rather than 3dbf. So I will call the folder that Windows is going to create chair. I click extract. And I will have now this new folder that contains a couple of images, and we will see how to use them. But more important, this phenomenal folder contains this file here. The file that has, you may have a slightly different icon, that's fine, but the file extension is 3ds. 3ds is a file extension. That means that is an object, not an entire project. So it doesn't contain lights, cameras, but just the chair. Okay? So to use this chair inside this phenomenal project, believe it or not, easier and the immediate way to use it will be from the folder where you have extracted your 3ds file. You left click on your 3ds file and you drag and drop it in your project. And I suggest to place it or the top or in perspective, but you simply drag and drop the file inside your project and boom, and it will be sticked to the cursor of your mouse, and with one left click you place the object inside the project. Okay? So it is nothing easier than drag and drop, but it has to be from the extracted folder. If you do it from the zip file, it doesn't work. Okay? Till here? Because now that we have seen how to import it, we have to see how to manage it. And we have to adjust only two clearly visible things. That will be, one is the size, because we can see that our house is made with real dimensions and this chair is huge. And then I will show you how to fix material. So what we have to do is we have to start by, whenever we import an object, the object can be also made by several pieces, and only the exact moment, that is when we drag and drop the file from the folder to our 3ds Max, even if our file is made by several pieces, all these several pieces are selected together. So first thing always is to drag and drop, step 1. Step 2, go to group, make a group. So that if we have, let's say, rubber feet underneath the chair, if we have a pillow on the chair, if we have the back with another material and so on, they are grouped together. And then what we have to do is just, we have to scale the object so that it will have realistic dimensions. So what to do. Too easy. You click scale. Let's say I go in perspective, and this is my chair. I need to know how big this object is and how big this object will become. So I click scale. I go to this menu on my 3ds Max that is called utilities, and I click measure. Measure here, where you see dimensions. Measure is telling me basically how big in X, Y, and Z my group is. So it is telling me which is bigger height, larger width, longer length. If this is a chair, I know that a chair should be more or less 43-45 centimeters large. So believe it, trust me, without being too picky, without being extremely precise, because in 3ds Max it doesn't matter. What you have to do is, by keeping measure utility here, you will scale this object, in my case down, till in real time you will see that dimensions will be changed to dimensions that you need. A little bit less, let's say 44. So now this chair has extremely realistic dimensions, and let me check. If I place this chair inside my project now, in floor plan and also in elevation, perfect, and I select this camera, that should be camera 1, poof, I will see my beautiful chair in scale inside my project, and I can do whatever I want now with this chair. I can check materials, I can copy, I can make instances, I can rotate it, but now this chair perfectly works for my project. Say we make an instance. The only thing, if I want, that I can do more is I can now open the material editor, and if I want, I can or make my own material and apply my own material to the chair, or if I want to see which material the chair already has, in the material editor I can click this small utility here that is called pick material. I click pick material and I pick the chair, and this is a message that appears. Look, it is saying that this is the material. The material has a texture, but 3ds Max doesn't know, as is written here, where this texture is right now. And this texture is called 4_red_sml.jpg. How to fix it? It's very simple. Look, I double click the picture. It is appearing black, so it is not loaded. And here I can see that it is where 3ds Max is thinking that the picture is. So I click bitmap and I basically go to the folder that I have downloaded. So where is download? Here, chair. Oh, look how lucky I am there is a file that is called 4redsml. So I click open, and now in this way 3ds Max has fixed the material that the chair already has. And if I see, my chairs are beautifully red. And if I render, they will perfect. Oops, wait. Sorry, I was trying to render, but I forgot that I set my 3ds Max with final render quality, so my streaming went crazy. So let me set my render parameters back to very basic, but just to show you that now you can use those objects. Oh, look, that's very nice as a project. White environment and red chairs. This is pure architecture. Okay? And this is how to deal with all 3D blocks that you can download. And steps are always the same. Download, extract, drag the 3ds, make a group, use measure, scale it, material. Boom. It is always like that. Okay? So let me know if you have doubts, other things that you would like to see, because if not, I think today we have made a lot of steps forward. I've explained a lot of interesting things. So if you have doubts, feel free to ask me, because if not, I would like to stop here to explain new things. So for that project, we have been selecting a lot of furniture, and notice that some manufacturers provide BIM dock. Does this work for 3ds? Look, technically in 3ds Max, if you go to import, technically, like you were importing the 3ds, you can import all these file formats. So you can import FBX, 3ds, ABC, Illustrator, CATIA, and then AutoCAD, Flight Studio, IGES, Inventor, OBJ. You can import Revit. You can import SAT, that is 3D AutoCAD. You can import SketchUp, SolidWorks, STL, that is basically the language for 3D printers, STP, that are CAM language, and all of these formats. What it changes is only that sometimes when you drag and drop some of these file formats, according to the one that you are importing, you may have an additional dialog box appearing. But believe it or not, except the DWG that I have explained which settings you have to use when you import floor plans, all other formats, if you drag and drop them and you see a dialog box appearing, in general, for all other files, options are already set as they should be. So if you drag and drop, let's say, a Revit file, just keep clicking OK to additional questions that 3ds Max is asking, and then yes, then they will work exactly like whatever object you have created or imported. So technically yes, unless you are inside this one of these file format, you can import everything inside 3ds and they will work exactly like I showed you. Okay, in general, BIM are Revit files. if they are not Revit, unfortunately you should open them with the software that they have been created and export them to one of all these files that you see here, but they are already a lot. Okay, which exact file format you have, because BIM is just a category of softwares, is not a file format, because BIM is Revit, ArchiCAD, ArcPlan, Nemetsketch, Vectorworks. All of these are BIM softwares, which is the file format that I don't remember. I don't remember. I mean, how is possible? Okay. For example, look, if you go to another website that is called Herman Miller, just as example, first of all, whoa, what a chair. And you go, Italy, can we make it English? Yes. Accept cookies. Perfect. So look, accept. Let's say you go to Herman Miller. There is a place where you should, where they sell chairs. And you go to resources, and then you go to 3D models, let's say product models. In here, for all objects that they sell, let's say this one, a chair that costs 8,500 US dollars. Whoa! Anyway, I was saying, if you go here and you see the download button, in here you open and you will discover that you have just multiple choices to choose from. So you can download the Revit, SketchUp 1, the AutoCAD 2D means the AutoCAD block, so just like the chair seen from the top or elevations. AutoCAD 3D is basically like 3ds. For example, I will download the Revit one because Revit is a file format that for my way to work, I can easily open it in Revit or in 3ds Max. So by downloading one file, I will be able to use it in both softwares. I will download this one, save, finish it, and then the same. Look, when I go to my download, I will see that this is a zip file. So I have to right click, extract, go change the name, let's call it Herman Miller chair. And look, this is a RFA, so this is a Revit family. Let's check first of all if I can import it, because when I click Revit, for example, 3ds Max wants RVT, that is the Revit project. So I can try, I don't know if this will immediately work, and it doesn't. So I should open it in Revit first. No, let's download instead the AutoCAD SketchUp one. Let's say, come on, let's give a chance to a SketchUp file. Okay, this is not zipped, so I just select the SketchUp, drag and drop. Whatever is written, I just wait. Let me see. Let me see, where is my SketchUp chair? It's gone. Where is? Sun position, teapot, teapot, teapot. Where is SketchUp? It's me, or I can see it. I always says that SketchUp is terrible. Okay, SketchUp doesn't work. Oh my gosh, this is a total failure. Let's use AutoCAD 3D. Save it. Let's see now. Import file. Oh, I know that SketchUp is terrible, but look, even if it is not 3ds, it is another format. Boom, look what a magnificent 3D object you have. Okay? And then, as I said, look, it is made by several pieces. So I need to take care when I scale it. So what I do is I import it. I group it immediately. Herman Miller. I open measure. This is already in centimeter, so there's nothing to change. And then I will change materials. Okay? Perfect. I have to stop here so that I make my next class, and for questions mail me, and if not, we will see next week. Okay? And bye everyone. It has been a pleasure. Thank you too. Have a nice day. Thank you so much.